Welcome back, and thanks for joining us here on America's Retirement Headquarters, home of the Retirement Guys Formula, America's Medicare Associates, and Retirement Tax Partners with Nolan Baker and Scott Kersner. 419-794-3030 is the phone number. It's 419-794-3030, online at arhq.com. Don't forget, if you missed the first half of the show or you just want to catch up on previous editions of the show, certain questions, all available on demand, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you consume your media. Just search for America's Retirement Headquarters. It's there for you to check out at your leisure. Kylie Bowler is a young mom who lives in Arizona and was very close to her grandfather. After he passed, well, she was surprised to learn that her grandpa left his entire estate to her.
Context, I am the youngest surviving family member for my grandpa. My mom, my aunt, his sister, his niece, and my two older brothers all are older than me, but he made me the sole beneficiary for everything. Although obviously this was a really big thing to help me for the future, my entire family kind of resents me. And even my mom, who I had a pretty close relationship with at one point, she's not a fan of this and she doesn't understand why these changes happen.
Look, no one wants to see a family fighting. As someone who is versed in estate planning, it's part of what you guys do after all. What are some 3 estate planning tips to avoid a family disaster?
Well, I think as Kylie points out, there is, issues and concerns that come up, and disasters in families and breakups can happen when these type of things happen, when somebody passes away. And I think, for all of us, I'm sure we've had some type of friend, family member, or loved one, and maybe even seen it in your own family, a situation where, some things happen, somebody passed away, and it ultimately turns out to be kind of a disaster. I know for myself personally, when I was a pretty young age, I think about the age of 21, my father had gotten remarried and was out playing golf one night back in Bryan, Ohio. And, at the age of 49, unfortunately had a heart attack and passed away on the golf course. And, my brother wasn't able to bring him back. And, being that he was recently married and had a blended family, I think, some of that created a lot of tension and stress. I know it did for a 21-year-old. Right now, we're working with our local estate planning attorney and getting our documents updated for our will and our trust and our power of attorney for our boys. The last time that we had them updated, I think they were about half of the age they are now. They were like 10, and now Andrew's 21 and Carter's 18. So there are 3 estate planning tips to avoid a family disaster. Working with retirees, working with the group that we do, America's Medicare Associates has, over 1,000 clients. We have, 800 local families that we take care of at America's Retirement Headquarters. Unfortunately, being that we work with retirees, we've seen this. So here's 3 tips to help you avoid this family disaster. First of all, I would say get it in writing.
Well, Nolan, we were talking over the break, getting it in writing. So my kids are about your kids' age, and we want to, last time we updated the will and the trust and everything like that, they were about the same age. What do you mean get it in writing?
Well, I think number one, that's good that you have something in writing. I can't tell you the amount of times that people will come into the office and we'll go through having that first appointment. That first appointment is just for us to get a chance to get to know you. We're going to have a conversation to talk about some of the things that are important to you as we start working on developing your retirement team action plan. And one of the questions I'll ask somebody is, do you have your estate plans in place? And a lot of times people will say, no, we haven't done anything yet. And these are folks that are either close to or in retirement time. Mm-hmm. So if you're listening and that's you, don't feel bad, but just know you only get one shot at getting this right. So when I talk about getting it in writing, I talk about having the attorney prepare the legal documents. As you had mentioned, that will that you had set up maybe when the kids were in their teenage years. For myself and some other people, you might have one as well. You might have set up a trust. And when I set up that trust, thinking back to when my kids were teenagers, I had written in language that had talked about somebody helping manage the money if mom and dad passed away up until their mid-30s. I flash forward years later. Now my kids are older. I've got 2 Eagle Scouts. I've got a son that works in the business, a college degree. I've got another child that's got a pretty good head on his shoulders making smart decisions. So I've decided to make some changes to, the management of the money. I feel that those kids are now more responsible, that the two of them can make more intelligent decisions based upon what they've done. So as life changes occur or as things happen, every couple of years it's good to do that. Now, here's a mistake, Scott, that I see a lot of people make. A lot of people think, well, I've got a will or I've got a trust, so everything's taken care of. You and I had sat down a couple of years ago and we had wrote something that's called the Ultimate Estate Planning Checklist. This was, my decades and your decades, years of not only business but personal experience, and to write out and craft some of the bigger mistakes that we see. Now, I know beyond wills and trusts, there's other mistakes that people have when getting it in writing.
Yeah, there's no question. We put that ultimate estate planning checklist together, and I come at it from a different angle. My angle is more as a result of dealing with my dad passing away. Helping mom navigate through what she had to navigate through. There were a lot of things that he had in place that she wasn't even aware of. So when I sit down with people, one of the things, a big mistake that I see is, and one of the things we put into this checklist is, not just, your beneficiaries, list all of the accounts. Those are things that everybody assumes are always in these checklists. But I brought it down to a more simplified level. What are the passwords to get into the phones, right? If you move to a new city, if you go to your local chamber of commerce, they're going to have a list of everybody you need to contact. Your electric company, the gas company, some suggestions for local insurance for property and casualty, the cell phone that works best in that particular area. They're going to have a checklist of different things. That's what I wanted to do, is bring it down to a level where it's real. Not that the other sections aren't real, but my dad had a satellite, right? And it was DirecTV, and it was paid for out of his credit card. And it was a single credit card that he had that mom wasn't on. Well, mom didn't know. She couldn't call up and cancel it. I couldn't call up and cancel it because they wouldn't even talk to either one of us. So passwords in who pays the bills. I ask clients, well, who pays the bills? And 9 times out of 10, the guy looks at the wife and says, she takes care of all that. I don't know anything going on, right? And if you're not properly communicating that, then if something were to happen to her, he's not going to have any idea who to even call or how to get into some of these accounts. Nolan, let me ask this. So, it's all well and good to have everything in writing, right? And communicating it is extremely important. But how often, when you sit down with a client and go through their review, do you bring that up every couple of years and kind of do a self-checklist with them sitting in front of you saying, hey, where are we at? Has anything changed that we need to maybe change a beneficiary or anything like that? Is that something you do on a regular basis?
It really is as important as life changes occur to make sure that you're having that communication, you're getting together with somebody and looking at, what some of the updates were. In the opening, it was some quotes that Kylie was talking a little bit about, her grandfather who had left her the estate. And, now there was this family disaster because of, I think, people just not really understanding. So, one of the negatives is it sounds like, Grandpa didn't communicate the plan on what his wishes were.
Yeah, absolutely. And the unfortunate thing for Kylie is she's a victim at this point. I mean, the rest of the family didn't really know what Grandpa's wishes were. And here she is thrust upon her. She can't even explain to them why, because she might not even know. I'm guessing that Grandpa probably didn't communicate to anybody what his wishes were, not even Kylie, and it's horribly unfortunate. It's going to make for unfortunate discussions at Thanksgiving.
Well, it's going to be a lot easier to just communicate the plan now and make sure that everybody understands. Again, losing my dad at 49, I wish he would have better communicated the plan, but at 49, who's thinking about passing away?
Exactly.
Unfortunately, he had a heart attack. We're doing the same thing now with our kids. Again, now that they're older, I'm working with our local estate planning attorney. We brought the kids and we sat down with them, and we kind of communicated the plan, because if you think about all the moving parts that are going on with anybody's individual situation, whether it's a blended family or myself, who I have, small businesses that I own. I have a child that works in the business. I have another son that I think is equal. You think about equal distribution. What does that look like when you have a child in the business and then you have another one that maybe is going in a different direction? You have those blended families. But communicating those wishes, I think, can help a lot of times avoid the family disaster. Now, the third estate planning tip that I'm going to give out for today on this segment and avoiding that family disaster is dealing with the issue of planning for healthcare and incapacity. I can remember a situation where one of our listeners had come up from a little bit south of us here and came into the office, and what she had shared with me is that her mom was in the nursing home, severely incapacitated, really unable to make a decision, and it was just probably going to be a short amount of time before mom didn't make it. She had gone through getting this financial inventory done for her mom. She looked at her mom's 401k and noticed her mom had not named a beneficiary on her 401k. Dad's not living.
Wow. She's
the only child, right? Wow. So she came in and she called the 401k company. She said, here's my power of attorney. I would like to go ahead and name the beneficiary on this account. I'm the only child, and I would like to put myself on here as beneficiary. But in her power of attorney, it didn't list specifically her right to change the beneficiary on a designation. It was a conflict of interest. The 401k provider would not name her as a beneficiary. Thus, ultimately, she passed away. It went to the estate, became a tax time bomb that blew up, lost tons of money in income, federal estate taxes, probate expenses, time delays, fees, and expenses. But this is another area when you're thinking about documents and you're thinking about planning and avoiding that family disaster. Again, another area where all of these things overlap, and you need to plan for healthcare and incapacity.
One thing I'll add to that, Nolan, in fact, we dealt with this with my mother-in-law passing here very recently, within the past 4 months. One of the things that I think is very, very important. So I guess a question would be, who should be the one to start putting together the POA? A lot of people may assume that, well, it's the person that wants the POA, like mom or dad, right? Well, mom's 86 years old. My dad had a POA, but he did not have a DNR, and he literally signed that on his deathbed before he became really, really bad. If you're listening today, you need to go to your parents. It may be a very difficult conversation to have with them, but it's very important for you to go to them and say, hey, I think we need to start thinking and talking about POAs and getting some things put in place. I'm going to tell you right now, there are family members. I deal with it personally. There are family members that deal with emotions, and there are family members that deal with reasoning. And those are two polar opposite ends of the spectrum. The person that deals with emotions, they are not going to reasonably think and do the best things necessarily for that loved one. The person that's dealing with reasoning is going to look at the situation, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have compassion and love for the person that's in that bad situation. It's just they're dealing with it in more of a reasoning thinking process. It's important to get these things put together, the POAs, like Nolan said. You want to make sure that you have the proper rights in the POA, and there's a healthcare power of attorney, and there's a durable power of attorneys. There's several different types of power of attorneys. You should work on getting them put together as soon as possible.
As the saying goes, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, and it's the same sort of thing when it comes to these estate plans. Having some perhaps not easy conversations now can avoid a lot of headache and heartache and quite frankly, family dissension in a time that's already emotionally fraught. Let the team at America's Retirement Headquarters help you navigate that and make sure that, when it comes to these estate plans, all the T's are crossed, all the I's are dotted. It's as simple as reaching out, setting up a time to speak with them, 419-794-3030. And you can also go to the website, find out more about the team, set up a time to speak with them there as well. And that is at arhq.com.